Hey guys, Elvin Arch here, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to use a bow drill. Just as soon as we finished admiring this natural shelter that I've made. Let's get to it.
So the first thing you're going to need to do is find yourself a nice piece of softwood. This is aspen, which I'm about to discover is not the best. Just remember, stick to deciduous woods. You don't want any kind of resins or oils in them that's going to glue your two pieces together. My favorites are cottonwood, cedar, and yucca. Yucca is probably the best. You're just going to need the stalk, which can be a little bit hard to find because it only grows in the second year, I believe. But find your piece of wood and then baton it in half. Baton one of those halves in half again. One of the halves is going to become your hearthboard, and the other half is going to become your spindle.
So the first thing you're going to have to do is find all of your pieces. From right to left, we have our tinder bundle. Those are aspen fibers. We have our handhold, which I bring with me every time I go out. It's made with a skateboard bearing, but you can improvise the same thing with a piece of hardwood. Next is our spindle. The spindle should have a rounded end and a more pointy end. Should be fairly round, but it doesn't have to be surgically so, and also fairly straight. Next, the bow. I'm using a modified arrow, but again, you can improvise something using a live branch and a piece of rope.
And just a note here, the rope is the hardest thing to improvise out in the woods, so carry a piece of paracord or bank line with you all the time. You don't want to try to do this with natural fibers.
Something to catch the ember, piece of bark or a leaf, half of the log you cut earlier. Alright, so to set up, to begin, you're going to pry out or carve out a small divot into your hearthboard. Pretty easy to do. It's just going to make starting the spinning a whole lot easier. And now we're going to burn it in. This is going to create a good seal or a good fit between the hearthboard and the spindle. This can take a minute, but once you start to see smoke, you'll know you're finished.
Another one is to wrap your shoelaces up inside your shoe. I cannot tell you the amount of times I've wrapped my shoelaces into the bow and had to start completely over.
Once we have it burned in, we're going to have to create a notch, a V, that goes about a third of the way into the divot. And once you have that, we can begin the actual bowing, which this is what you saw in the last video, but I'll go over it again. Take your ember catchment system. Alright, so now all we have to do is to create an ember.
So I do have a basic pattern here. I start out very moderate until I start to see smoke, and then I go into my 80 stroke pattern. So the 80 stroke pattern works like this: 20 strokes till you see smoke, 20 strokes pushing down a little more and bowing a little faster, 20 a little harder, a little faster, and then by this time I should see big clouds of smoke, That'll indicate that it's time to do 20 really hard, really fast, and that's usually enough to give it that tiny bit more heat to bring the ember up to ignition temperature.
There's our ember. It's okay. Just get your finger out of the way of the camera.
It's not in the way of the camera.
So there's our ember. That was a whole lot harder than it was with the cottonwood spindle and hearthboard, but you know, it's from locally sourced materials, so it's always good to have those skills. All right, cool. So now all we have to do is blow it into flame. So give it a minute to smolder. And this is a very delicate part. I'm going to transfer the whole ember without destroying it.
When you're doing this, blow with a gentle but steady pressure until you start to see the rest of the fibers start to smolder. You can slowly increase, just don't make yourself pass out. I've nearly done that before. It's not the most fun experience. Just expect that you're going to get smoke in your eyes, you're going to breathe a little bit in, and you're probably going to get embers on your hands. It's just a natural thing that's going to happen. Holding it upwind from yourself and holding it up above your head can both help with this, though.
Whew. All right, so that's how you start a fire with a bow drill.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching.